On 11 December 1941, Berlin buzzed with tension as Adolf Hitler declared war on the United States, a decision unforced by Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor 4 days prior. This act transformed a European conflict into a global duel against an industrial titan. Germany, already stretched against the Soviet Union, now faced American manpower shipyards and airfields. The core metric defining this contest was industrial output. The United States produced 42,000 aircraft in 1942 alone, dwarfing Germany's 14,000 under Allied bombing constraints. Hitler's choice exposed German forces to a foe that could arm, move, and sustain armies across oceans. The stage was set by late 1941. Germany's Eastern Front devoured fuel and divisions, while US planners untested but methodical mobilized. American shipbuilding ensured Atlantic convoys reached Britain, and staff colleges refined combined arms doctrine. Hitler's insistence on fighting everywhere, Soviet steppes, Mediterranean shores, Atlantic waters spread German strength thin. The United States, by contrast, could choose its entry point. Operation Torch, launched on 8 November 1942, in North Africa, landed U.S. forces under Dwight D. Eisenhower against Vichy, French and German units in Tunisia. Hitler's response was to reinforce a logistical trap, sending Africa Corps veterans into a pocket dependent on Italian sea lines, vulnerable to Allied air and naval strikes. In Tunisia, German tactical skill shone early. At Kasserine Pass in February 1940, 3 elements of the 5th Panzer Army under Hans-Jürgen von Arnim exploited U.S. inexperience routing the 1st Armored Division. American troops new to desert warfare struggled with command friction and artillery coordination. Yet the cold reality was stark. German supply lines stretched 1,000 miles from Italian ports under constant interdiction. Hitler's order to hold Tunisia, ignoring evacuation, locked his forces in place. U.S. commanders, notably Eisenhower and Omar N. Bradley, enforced corrections post-Kasserine, tightening logistics and integrating air support. By May 1943, Axis surrender in Tunis ended Germany's African foothold. From the German perspective, at Kasserine's peak, American lines crumbled under panzer speed, but this tactical win masked strategic doom. Hitler's refusal to yield ground negated German flexibility, while U.S. systems learned fast. The United States, with 42,000 aircraft annually, could replace losses. Germany could not. This opening clash revealed the pattern. Hitler's centralized commands clashed with American adaptability, setting the stage for broader fronts. Previous section text continue seamlessly from where this left off. Section 2. Learning duel and Mediterranean shift. 2. North Africa to Sicily, 1943. The fall of Tunisia, in May 1943, marked a turning point, not for its tactical brilliance, but for the strategic trap it exposed. Hitler's insistence on holding a shrinking North African bridgehead, despite interdicted supply lines, cost Germany seasoned divisions and materiel. The United States, bloodied at Kasserine Pass, emerged sharper, its commanders refining command chains and artillery doctrine. The core metric, industrial output, with 42,000 U.S. aircraft produced in 1942, loomed larger as American airfields in North Africa began pounding Axis ports. This capacity allowed the Allies to pivot swiftly to the next phase, Sicily. Operation Husky, launched on 10 July 1943, saw U.S. 7th Army under George S. Patton land on Sicily's southern coast alongside British forces. The island's rugged terrain favored defenders, but Hitler's broader strategic error, overcommitting to the Eastern Front and North Africa, left German units like the Hermann Göring Division under strength. Italian forces, demoralized and poorly equipped, crumbled under Allied pressure. U.S. forces, now better coordinated, used amphibious mobility to outflank German strongpoints. The campaign's pace, covering 150 miles in 38 days, strained German logistics further, as Luftwaffe airfields faced relentless U.S. 9th Air Force raids. Engine overhaul after 50 hours at full throttle limited German sorties. Hitler's command style compounded the strain. He issued rigid hold orders, forbidding elastic defense, even as Allied naval gunfire and air superiority battered German positions. From the German perspective, at Geller's defense, Allied ships blackened the horizon shells, raining unceasingly. This moment underscored the futility of fixed positions against mobile U.S. forces. Patton's rapid advance, often outrunning his own supply lines, exposed German inability to shift reserves quickly. By mid-August 1943, Sicily fell, and the Allies stood on Europe's southern edge. The Sicilian campaign revealed a deeper U.S. strength systemic learning. American staff officers analyzed Kasserine and Tunisia, improving radio networks and air-ground coordination. Germany, by contrast, relied on Hitler's intuition, which overruled field commanders like Albert Kesselring. Kesselring, tasked with defending Italy, faced a nightmare. Hitler's orders tied divisions to a long mountainous peninsula, draining resources needed elsewhere. The U.S. system built for mass-rotated fresh units and maintained 42,000 aircraft annually, ensuring air cover for landings. This industrial edge, paired with flexible command, let Eisenhower choose the next blow, mainland Italy. The Italian campaign, beginning with landings at Salerno on 9 September 1943, stretched German defences further. Hitler's refusal to cede ground south of Rome forced Kesselring to fortify the Gustav Line, a mountainous choke point. U.S. Fifth Army, under Mark W. Clark, faced brutal attrition at places like Monte Cassino, where German paratroopers used terrain to deadly effect. Yet American logistics trucks, fuel and engineer battalions kept pressure on even in mud and snow. The United States could sustain corps-level operations across oceans. Germany's supply lines, harried by Allied air, faltered. Sortie rates dropped below 100 daily for the Luftwaffe by late 1943, under bombing and fuel constraints. Hitler's misjudgments piled up. His obsession with holding Italy diverted panzer divisions from France, where the Atlantic Wall awaited its test. Meanwhile, the United States built up in Britain, amassing landing craft, long-range P-51 escorts and the U.S. 8th Air Force. This build-up, backed by industrial output, set the stage for Normandy. German officers, bound by Hitler's directives, could not redeploy flexibly, while U.S. commanders like Omar N. Bradley split corps or shifted axes as needed. The Mediterranean campaigns from Tunisia to Italy were proving grounds where American systems matured and German rigidity cracked. The human contrast was stark. Hitler's personal control, issuing orders from Berlin, ignoring Kesselring's pleas for maneuver, stifled initiative. U.S. leadership centered on Eisenhower's coalition staff, empowered field commanders. Patton's aggression, tempered by Bradley's caution, showed a system that could absorb setbacks and adapt. German tactical skill, still potent in Italy's mountains, was eroded by strategic overreach. The cold reality hit in Italy. German divisions stretched across 1,000 miles of front lacked replacements. The United States, with its vast output, poured men and machines into the fight, learning with each bloody mile. As 1943 closed, the Mediterranean theatre had shifted the war's momentum. Hitler's choice to fight on multiple fronts, compounded by his refusal to evacuate untenable positions, handed the Allies initiative. The United States, through industrial might and command flexibility, turned early defeats into stepping stones. Sicily and Italy exposed Germany's inability to match American scale, setting the stage for the decisive test in France. The next phase would pit Hitler's Atlantic Wall against a U.S. invasion machine honed by 2 years of combat and production. The dawn of 6 June 1944 broke over Normandy's beaches, where U.S. First Army under Omar N. Bradley landed on Omaha and Utah sectors. Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of France, pitted American industrial might against Hitler's Atlantic Wall. The core metric industrial output, with 42,000 U.S. aircraft produced annually, enabled relentless air cover as P-51 Mustangs escorted bombers over German positions. Hitler's strategic errors, already evident in Tunisia and Italy, now faced their ultimate test. His refusal to unify Atlantic Wall doctrine split between Erwin Rommel's forward defense and Gerd von Rundstedt's mobile reserves left German 7th Army vulnerable. Hitler's command paralysis defined the opening hours. He held sole authority to release Panzergroup West's armoured divisions, but asleep in Berchtesgaden, he issued no orders until midday. German commanders like Friedrich Dollmann at 7th Army watched US troops pour ashore under naval gunfire and airstrikes. From the German perspective, at Omaha's bloody crest, American waves kept coming, ships and planes unending. This moment captured the futility of fixed defenses against U.S. momentum. The United States landed 156,000 troops on D-Day, supported by 5,000 ships and 11,000 aircraft, numbers Germany could not match. Early setbacks tested American resolve. At Omaha Beach, the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions faced near disaster against the 352nd Infantry Division's entrenched guns. Yet, U.S. logistics, landing craft, engineer battalions and naval support pushed through. By nightfall, beachheads held and supplies flowed. German counterattacks delayed by Hitler's indecision and Allied air interdiction faltered. Luftwaffe sorties limited to 200 daily under fuel and bombing constraints could not disrupt the build-up. The cold reality struck. German tanks needed refit after 100 hours of combat. American systems, by contrast, rotated fresh units and maintained air superiority. Hitler's broader misjudgments compounded the crisis. His obsession with holding every inch, rooted in North African and Italian failures, forbade elastic defense. Rommel, commanding Army Group B, begged for maneuver, but Hitler's orders tied panzer divisions to coastal forts. Meanwhile, U.S. commanders adapted. Bradley, coordinating with Bernard Montgomery's 21st Army Group, shifted corps to exploit Utah's lighter resistance. Eisenhower's coalition staff honed in the Mediterranean integrated air, naval and ground operations seamlessly. The U.S. 8th Air Force, flying 2,000 sorties daily, pounded German railheads, isolating Normandy's defenders. The breakout came in July 1944 at Saint-Lô, where U.S. 1st Army, backed by carpet bombing, shattered German lines. Operation Cobra, led by J. Lawton Collins' the 7th Corps, exploited the gap, encircling German forces at Falaise by August. Hitler's refusal to authorize withdrawals trapped the 5th Panzer Army, costing Germany 20,000 prisoners and 200 tanks. American logistics trucks, fuel depots, and Red Ball Express convoys sustained the advance, covering 200 miles in weeks. Germany's fuel stocks, below 50,000 tons by August, crippled counterattacks. The U.S. The system, built for scale, replaced losses. Germany's could not. The human contrast was glaring. Hitler's centralized control, issuing orders from hundreds of miles away, stifled initiative. German officers like Hans von Luck of the 21st Panzer Division improvised under rigid directives but lacked reserves. U.S. leadership, decentralized yet coordinated, empowered corps commanders to shift axes or call airstrikes. Bradley's staff, learning from Kasserine and Sicily, perfected combined arms. The United States could absorb Omaha's losses and press forward. Germany bled dry in Tunisia, and Italy could not. The cold metric held American divisions rotated after 30 days of sustained combat, maintaining tempo. Normandy's fall exposed Hitler's strategic bankruptcy. His failure to resolve Atlantic Wall disputes, coupled with delayed reserves, handed the Allies a lodgment. The Falaise pocket, a direct result of his no-retreat orders, gutted German strength in the West. By September 1944, U.S. forces, backed by 42,000 aircraft, annually raced toward the Rhine. The next test, Hitler's final gamble in the Ardennes, would prove whether Germany could claw back initiative or collapse under American systems honed over 2 years of war. Winter's grip tightened over the Ardennes on 16 December 1944, when German forces launched Unternehmenwacht am Rhein, Hitler's desperate bid to split Allied lines, targeting U.S. 1st Army in Belgium's dense forests. The offensive aimed to seize Antwerp and disrupt Allied supply ports. The core metric industrial output, with 42,000 U. U.S. aircraft produced annually loomed as American air power waited for clear skies. Hitler's plan, born of dwindling fuel and battered divisions, relied on surprise-captured U.S. fuel and persistent fog to neutralize Allied air superiority. The opening days stunned U.S. forces. German 5th and 6th Panzer armies under Hasso von Manteuffel and Sepp Dietrich pierced thinly held lines exploiting American overextension after Normandy. The 106th Infantry Division, green and stretched across 20 miles, collapsed, yielding 8,000 prisoners. German spearheads, including Kampfgruppe Peiper, advanced 60 miles, but fuel shortages halted tanks short of U.S. depots. Hitler's gamble assumed bad weather would ground Allied planes, yet his logistics, under 50,000 tons of fuel reserves, constrained operations. The cold reality bit German tanks needed refueling every 100 miles under combat load. American resilience turned the tide. U.S. commanders, notably Anthony McAuliffe at Bastogne, held key road junctions, delaying German timetables. Eisenhower, coordinating from Versailles, shifted George S. Patton's Third Army north, covering 80 miles in 48 hours. By 23 December, clearing skies unleashed U.S. 9th Air Force flying 3,000 sorties daily to shred German columns. From the German perspective, at Bastogne's siege, American thunderbolts struck relentlessly, roads choked with burning wrecks. This moment marked the offensive's unraveling as U.S. logistics trucks, fuel and reinforcements restored momentum. Hitler's strategic flaws doomed the effort. His insistence on capturing Antwerp, rather than a limited spoiling attack, overtaxed German resources. The Ardennes consumed 250 tanks, and 70,000 men, losses Germany could not replace. U.S. forces, by contrast, drew on industrial depth, fielding fresh divisions and 42,000 aircraft annually. American engineers rebuilt bridges, and Red Ball Express convoys delivered fuel under fire. The U.S. Army's ability to rotate corps, honed in Normandy, maintained pressure while German units tied to Hitler's no-retreat orders disintegrated. The human contrast was decisive. Hitler's micromanagement, issuing directives from Berlin, ignored field realities, as Joachim Pepper's stalled advance showed. German officers short on fuel and men faced impossible odds. U.S. leadership, built on flexibility, empowered commanders like Patton to pivot and counterattack. Omar N. Bradley, overseeing 1st and 3rd Armies, integrated air-ground operations, a skill perfected from Tunisia to Normandy. The cold metric held U.S. divisions sustained operations, with 100 tons of supplies daily even in snow. Germany's supply lines, harried by airstrikes, collapsed. By January 1945, the Ardennes offensive was a wreck. U.S. forces, absorbing 30,000 casualties, regained lost ground, while Germany lost its last mobile reserves in the west. Hitler's myth of operational genius, bold strikes overcoming material odds, shattered. The United States, with its industrial and logistical backbone, turned a surprise attack into a German catastrophe. The road to the Rhine lay open as American systems, tested and refined across 3 years, prepared to deliver the final blow. The aftermath unfolded swiftly. By March 1945, U.S. First Army seized the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, an opportunistic thrust across the Rhine. Hitler's hold orders forbidding withdrawals trapped German units west of the river. American logistics engineer battalions, pontoon bridges and tactical air sustained the advance, covering 100 miles in weeks. Germany's command, fractured by Hitler's purges and paranoia, crumbled. The U.S. model, blending coalition command, industrial mass and adaptive tactics, overwhelmed a system chained to one man's will. The war's end came in May 1945, with Germany defeated on all fronts. Hitler's initial error, declaring war on the United States, cascaded through Tunisia, Sicily, Normandy, and the Ardennes. His refusal to yield ground, resolve command disputes, or prioritize logistics handed the United States time and space to apply its strengths. The Western theater proved that American scale, paired with learning, outmatched German tactical skill, trapped by strategic folly. By February 1945, U.S. forces stood poised along the Rhine, the last natural barrier shielding Germany's industrial core. The Ardennes offensive, Hitler's failed gamble, had gutted German armour, leaving Army Group B under Walter Model reeling. Operation Veritable and Grenade, launched by U.S. 9th Army under William H. Simpson, targeted the Rhineland's northern plains, aiming to clear German defences west of the river. The core metric industrial output producing 42,000 U.S. aircraft annually ensured relentless air cover as P-47 Thunderbolts struck German railheads. Hitler's insistence on holding every ridge despite fuel shortages faced American logistics honed from Normandy. The Rhineland's muddy terrain and Siegfried Line forts favoured defenders, but German divisions bled dry in the Ardennes, mustered only 30,000 men against 150,000 Allied troops. Hitler's orders issued from Berlin forbade withdrawals, pinning the 1st Parachute Army in static positions. U.S. engineers bridging rivers under fire, and Red Ball Express convoys delivering 200 tons daily sustained momentum. The cold reality struck German artillery, needed repositioning after 50 rounds due to barrel wear. American artillery, backed by industrial output, fired 10,000 shells daily, pulverizing bunkers. On 7 March 1945, U.S. 1st Army's 9th Armored Division seized the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, a fluke that shattered German plans. Hitler, enraged, sacked commanders, but his no-retreat doctrine prevented Army Group B from regrouping east of the Rhine. From the German perspective, at Remagen's collapse, American tanks crossed the bridge. Our demolition charges failed. This moment exposed Germany's unravelling command. U.S. forces under Courtney Hodges poured across, establishing a bridgehead, while engineers built pontoon spans. German counterattacks, limited to 100 Luftwaffe sorties daily, fizzled under Allied air superiority. Hitler's broader errors compounded the crisis. His purge of field commanders like Gerd von Rundstedt replaced experience with loyalists, fracturing cohesion. American leadership centered on Omar N. Bradley's 12th Army Group delegated authority, allowing corps commanders to exploit breakthroughs. The U.S. system, refined in Sicily and Normandy, integrated air-ground operations, with 9th Air Force flying 2,000 sorties daily to isolate German units. Germany's fuel below 30,000 tons by March crippled mobility. The United States, with 42,000 aircraft, annually maintained pressure-rotating divisions every 30 days to keep tempo. The Rhineland campaign, ending in late March, cost Germany 50,000 prisoners and 200 tanks losses, unreplaceable after Ardennes. U.S. logistics, trucks, fuel and bridging units enabled rapid exploitation as 1st and 3rd Armies linked up. Hitler's refusal to authorize elastic defense, rooted in Tunisia's failure, trapped his forces west of the Rhine. American commanders, learning from Kasserine's chaos, adapted tactics to muddy terrain using smoke screens and night assaults. The Rhine crossing, a logistical triumph, set the stage for encircling Germany's industrial Ruhr. The human contrast was stark. Hitler's micromanagement, demanding reports from shattered units, paralyzed initiative. German officers like Hans-Günther van Hoven at Remagen acted under contradictory orders, unable to shift reserves. U.S. leadership built on flexibility empowered Hodges and George S. Patton to seize opportunities. Bradley's staff, coordinating 3 armies, perfected combined arms, a skill honed over 3 years. The Rhineland proved that American scale, paired with tactical learning, could dismantle even Germany's fortified core. By late March 1945, U.S. forces surged east of the Rhine, targeting the Ruhr, Germany's industrial lifeline, producing 80% of its steel. Operation Plunder, launched on 23 March, saw U.S. 1st and 9th Armies under Omar N. Bradley's 12th Army Group cross the Rhine in force, supported by 1,000 landing craft and 2,000 aircraft. The core metric industrial output, with 42,000 U.S. aircraft, annually ensured air supremacy as P-47 Thunderbolts obliterated German supply depots. Hitler's insistence on defending the Ruhr, despite shattered logistics, faced American combined arms perfected from North Africa to Normandy. The Ruhr's flat terrain and coal mines offered defensive potential, but German Army Group B under Walter Model fielded only 100,000 men against 400,000 Allied troops. Hitler's no-retreat orders echoing Tunisia and Ardennes, failures tied divisions to fixed positions vulnerable to encirclement. U.S. Logistics Red Ball Express convoys delivering 300 tons daily and engineer battalions bridging rivers sustained rapid advances. The cold reality hit German tanks required overhaul after 100 hours of combat. American M4 Shermans, backed by industrial output, rolled forward with 5,000 replacements available monthly. On 1 April 1945, U.S. 1st and 9th Armies linked at Lippstadt encircling the Ruhr and trapping Model's forces. Hitler issuing frantic directives from Berlin demanded counterattacks, but fuel stocks below 20,000 tons immobilized panzer units. From the German perspective, at the pocket's closure, American armor closed the trap, our fuel tanks dry. This moment marked Germany's industrial death knell. U.S. forces under Courtney Hodges and William H. Simpson tightened the noose, supported by 9th Air Force, flying 3,000 sorties daily to pulverize strongpoints. Hitler's strategic errors sealed the collapse. His obsession with holding the Ruhr, ignoring Model's pleas for withdrawal, sacrificed Germany's last cohesive army in the West. Purges of competent officers replaced by loyalists left units leaderless. American leadership, by contrast, thrived on delegation. Bradley, coordinating with George S. Patton's Third Army, shifted corps to exploit gaps, a tactic honed in Sicily. The U.S. system, producing 42,000 aircraft annually, maintained air-ground integration, isolating German defenders. Luftwaffe sorties below 50 daily by April could not contest the skies. The Ruhr pocket collapsed by 18 April, yielding 250,000 prisoners, including 30 generals, and ending Army Group B's existence. Model, ordered to fight to the last, took his own life. U.S. logistics trucks, fuel and artillery sustained the advance, covering 100 miles in weeks. Germany's industrial output, crippled by bombing and now lost, could not replace losses. American divisions rotated every 30 days, pressed toward the Elbe, facing only scattered resistance. Hitler's myth of willpower overcoming material odds tested in Ardennes lay shattered by American scale and adaptability. The human contrast was decisive. Hitler's centralized control issuing orders to non-existent divisions paralyzed response. German commanders, bound by fear of retribution, followed suicidal directives. U.S. leadership built on flexibility, empowered corps commanders to adjust tactics, as Hodges's night assaults showed. Bradley's staff refining combined arms, since Kasserine integrated air armor and infantry seamlessly. The cold metric held U.S. supply lines delivered 100 tons daily per division, even under strain. Germany's logistics, harried by airstrikes, collapsed, leaving troops to surrender or flee. The Ruhr's fall marked the war's final phase. With Germany's industrial heart gone, U.S. forces raced to the Elbe, meeting Soviet troops on 25 April at Torgau. Hitler's initial error, declaring war on the United States, cascaded through every campaign, from Tunisia's trap to the Ruhr's encirclement. His refusal to yield ground or delegate authority handed the United States time to apply its industrial and tactical strengths, dismantling Germany's western defenses. Previous section text continue seamlessly from where this left off. Section 7. Strategic verdict and war's end. American systems triumph. May 1945. By late April 1945, U.S. forces reached the Elbe River, linking with Soviet troops at Torgau on 25 April, as Germany's western defenses crumbled. The Ruhr's fall costing Hitler 250,000 men, left only scattered Wehrmacht units and Volkssturm militias. The core metric industrial output with 42,000 USS. Aircraft annually sustained American momentum as P-51 Mustangs patrolled skies empty of Luftwaffe opposition. Hitler's initial misstep, declaring war on the United States in 1941, culminated in a strategic collapse driven by his rigid command and American adaptability. The final weeks saw U.S. 7th Army under Alexander Patch and 3rd Army under George S. Patton drive into Bavaria and Austria, covering 200 miles against minimal resistance. Hitler's orders, now issued from a Berlin bunker, demanded defense of every village, but German units out of fuel and ammunition surrendered en masse. U.S. Logistics Red Ball Express, delivering 400 tons daily, and engineer battalions repairing railheads kept armies moving. The cold reality struck. German rifles lacked ammunition after 10 days of sustained combat. American supply chains, backed by industrial output, provided 20,000 rounds daily per division. On 7 May 1945, Germany signed unconditional surrender at Reims, effective 8 May, ending the European War. Hitler, dead by suicide on 30 April, left a fractured command under Karl Dönitz, unable to coordinate. From the German perspective, at Berlin's fall, American tanks rolled unopposed, our divisions gone. This final moment underscored the futility of Hitler's centralized control against U.S. systems. The United States, fielding 3 million men in Europe by 1945, overwhelmed Germany's 1 million depleted troops, a gap widened by 3 years of strategic errors. Hitler's mistakes were structural. Declaring war on the United States without securing Japan's reciprocal commitment invited an industrial giant into the fight. His no-retreat orders from Tunisia to the Ruhr sacrificed experienced divisions as seen in Model's entrapment. Failure to unify Atlantic Wall tactics in 1944 delayed Normandy's defense, while the Ardennes gamble burned irreplaceable armor. American leadership centered on Dwight D. Eisenhower's coalition staff contrasted sharply. Omar N. Bradley and Patton, empowered to shift corps or call airstrikes, exploited German rigidity, a flexibility honed since Kasserine Pass in 1943. The U.S. The model of war, built on industrial mass coalition command and tactical learning, proved decisive. 42,000 aircraft annually ensured air superiority from Sicily's beaches to Berlin's outskirts. Logistical depth, trucks, fuel, and bridging units sustained advances across 1,000 miles of contested ground. Early setbacks like Kasserine were studied and corrected, unlike German tactics frozen by Hitler's decrees. The United States integrated air armor and infantry, a system refined through North Africa, Normandy, and the Rhineland, while Germany's command, chained to one man's will, fractured under pressure. The human contrast defined the outcome. Hitler's micromanagement, purging commanders like Gerd von Rundstedt, stifled initiative, leaving officers like Walter Model to execute impossible orders. American commanders, supported by staff colleges and industrial output, adapted to each theater's demands. Bradley's 12th Army Group, coordinating 3 armies, maintained tempo, while Patton's rapid thrusts disrupted German lines. The United States replaced losses men, tanks, planes, while Germany after 1943 could not. A disparity rooted in Hitler's failure to prioritize logistics over ideology. The Western theater, from Torch to the Elbe, exposed Hitler's strategic bankruptcy. His war on the United States, launched without assessing American output, guaranteed defeat when paired with his refusal to delegate or withdraw. The United States, through industrial scale, logistical precision, and willingness to learn, turned each German misstep into an opportunity, culminating in May 1945's victory. The war's end cemented a truth: systems built for mass and adaptation outlast those tethered to one man's flawed vision.